Today we have Sean Moran, the owner of Dashing Chicago here in Chicago, Illinois. How are you going? How's it going, man?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much. This is such a surprise. And when I reached out to you, I had no idea we're going to do this. So this is a nice little surprise going forward.
Oh, man, I'm excited to have you. I'm so looking forward to hearing more about the shop and your experience and your journey as an entrepreneur. So let's start. Tell the people about yourself.
Sure. Sean Moran, kind of got into retail. I guess I was maybe destined to do retail. I've always loved retail from a young guy. My mom used to work at the mall, so I used to hang out at the mall. And then as a teenager, I used to drive up from the south suburbs up to Oak Brook to go sit at a Barnes & Noble or walk around Oak Brook Mall. But in a nutshell, went to school for finance originally, graduated with that, worked at a community bank. One thing led to another, went back to design school because I'd done some stuff on my own that kind of proved I wanted to go and practice like a little more graphic design. Long story short, that didn't work. Skill sets were easy to get to me. I'm kind of a skill-based person, so I attained those pretty fast. And then met a women's wear designer, Anastasia Chatska, and one thing or another, we dated, but then are better as friends and business partners. And then due to an accident on my bicycle, I fell into some money and was able to open her store with her back in 2009. So at the height of the Great Recession, we opened a women's wear store in Chicago together. So that was kind of my introduction into fully owning my own first retail as a co-owner with her. So basically I ran the store 100% and she did all the designing. And then after that kind of lapsed for a little bit, she was trying to decide what she wanted to do retail wise. And I started looking and we kind of parted ways as business partners. And I started Haberdash and GM'd Haberdash for, I'll call it about 4 years. And then saw that through, and I was threw the keys under the door when they decided to close that store, and I was there until the very end. And then took a little bit of a break, and then I was at Le Faux Chicago. I ran Le Faux Chicago, which is a men's shoe store of about, I think Steven's had his business about 13 years now, and it's luxury footwear. Steven got into it in like 2009, 08, 09. He opened at the height of the recession himself, and I was Chicago's kind of Midwest bureau for that, so to speak, and did that for the entire time that was open. And then pre-COVID, he decided he wanted to close the store, and just due to the logistics of running two stores. I mean, it's something we can talk about. I think it's a thing that entrepreneurs don't realize. Scaling to one store is one thing, and then scaling two and keeping all the accounts in check and everything else like that. That's a challenge that, a lot of young entrepreneurs or retailers really, I mean, whether you're a florist or whatever, I mean, if you're a shoe shiner, if you for that matter, or, even a barber, to run two locations is kind of tough. So it took a year due to COVID, had some ups and downs in 2020, trying to get the store open, and then decided to weather out the election and then look for 2021. And here we are. So since July was the soft open. I haven't done anything big. Cracked the door. Two of my brands stayed with me the entire time, some care products, some clients. And luckily, like any good small business, I'm super niche. And I'm the only vendor for my two products, basically in the entire center part of America. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, or at least one for Illinois, but the other one for like basically Ohio to Denver to like ATL to me. Yeah. So, it's a huge benefit. And it's one of those things where it's like, if you're going to be a small business and you're going to launch something that has a boutique kind of atmosphere and a boutique clientele that can really generate sales, you might as well be doing something extremely niche and be the only one doing it. So
awesome. No, I love that. Tell me a little bit about, I love the journey. When you decided you wanted to open up Dashing, like what was your first action? What was the first thing you did?
Oh, to be frank, the building people here wanted me to flip off the lights and flip them back on. So basically December 20th, they were like, bye. And then they text message me and were like, so January 1st, you want to flip on the lights as your own store? And I was like, no, I am not prepared for that whatsoever. It kind of happened like that after Haberdash too. Alden rep, who had been there before he retired, like he was almost there he was over there 60 years. He said the same thing. He goes, "You were great. We love you. Do you want your own account?" And 2016, early 2016, I was like, what am I going to do with my own Alden account? So that was kind of the same situation. And then I interviewed for some positions in New York in early January. I was there during Men's Show and had a couple interviews. And then due to COVID, the positions got shut down because they were mostly sales. And I unfortunately, like most people, was on unemployment and then weathered on my own dime for the rest of the time. So, you know, had it opened, I've said the entire time, had 2020 kind of the trajectory been different, honestly, a little less civil unrest, I would have opened in 2020. I was willing to work around COVID. That wasn't a scare to me. I wasn't worried about opening a business in COVID. It was more everything around what was going around in 2020 that was kind of just scary.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think that was more the part that was very unpredictable and, you know, it was just, COVID was manageable. But then all of a sudden I decided, okay, we're going to do this. And I admit, I interviewed for lots of stuff. I actually knew the minute that I was signing the lease, 1 or 2 brands would come out of the woodwork and approach me of dream jobs. And I kid you not, I was tempted. I had Rivian come out and email me, and I did take the interview because I was super curious. Rivian Motors, for those who don't know, it's an electric car company. They make really cool, their niche, they're jumping off with like SUVs. And they actually they bought the Mitsubishi plant down in Normal, Illinois, where I went to school. And they're doing the bases, so the motorized bases with the engine or like with the electronics and everything for UPS and USPS. For the future. I would say they're like the good electronic or the good like or whatever you want to call it, kind of car company. Their CEO just doesn't want to, they're so low key, but the product is amazing. And they're going after like super sporty, outdoorsy people to launch. And it's just, they're phenomenal stuff. So they tempted me and I took the interview just to take it. But I mean, the other one was a bike company and I was, whatever about that, but but then I did it and I was like, no, I'm all in. And I redid the store. The whole thing was, it was as is. So I stripped the paint, stripped the wallpaper, did it all myself. Family didn't come down to help, painted, need some touch ups, but just went to it. And, luckily I had a lot of people still following me on Instagram and on social media, and that helped quite a bit because it was a good confidence booster. I did have a list of clients that were from Chicago, and that's what I concentrated on, was just Chicago people and people who came through my door. And I'm happy I'm here. And, it's scary, but I ran LaFaux Chicago basically independently. Stephen would kind of come in and go, but on a day-to-day, I was the only employee ever in this store. So I kind of knew what was possible during the time frame and stuff like that. And then it was just kind of refining people. And again, when you go to the Alden website and put in Illinois, and I'm the only person, that kind of helps quite a bit. So
right, for sure. So one theme, just kind of as you talked about your journey, and also the kind of birth of dashing, is relationships. Like talk to me about the power of relationships and how important it's been for you to kind of build these strong relationships and maintain them, because it sounds like it's played kind of an integral role in
ginormous. I wouldn't have just backed any designer. I backed Anastasia to start, you know what I'm saying? And I only saw that because when I met her in school, we weren't dating, obviously, but I saw what she was doing and I was like blown away. I was like, I've been following fashion since I was like 11 years old. Like, I understood construction. I've been to Europe. I've been to the big stores and stuff like that, like in Milan and stuff like that, in Rome and whatnot, seeing stuff. So I was like, I know what's like possible, and this gal can do it. And I believe in her, even after we stopped dating and we were like still business partners. I'm like, I still believe in her. I still believe in her vision. So starting there, like, you have to trust the brands you're with. And in my case, then even at Haberdash, it's like, it was building that rapport. It was building those people. And the key to the relationship was, when I got the job at LaFaux, Stephen, who owns LaFaux, was like, who's your one industry reference? And I was like, Floyd at Alden. And he kind of was like, oh, Floyd at Alden? He's going to vouch for you. He called Floyd God rest the guy, he's since passed, but he was like, just give the store to Shawn, don't worry about it. And Steven was like, what? And he goes, just trust him, he's good, don't even worry about it, just give him the store. And Steven's like, oh, okie dokie, like, cool. So, it was a trust thing. And I think that was big because, and I believe in Alden, I believe in Edward Green. I believe now, I'm going to carry probably Paraboot next year, hopefully towards the end of the year. It does, it makes a difference. It makes a difference when you build up the relationship, when like the president or CEO of Edward Green, calls you and then calls back because you have to tell her you're busy. And then she tells you need an assistant because you're too busy when I call. And I'm like, that's a good thing. So, stuff like that means a lot to me personally. I know in this world, things are kind of like, very, surface, and, I know a lot of luxury retail, people flit around, because it's just like, it's kind of incestuous. It's just, you work there, you work there, you work there. And now kind of it's the same 100 people in Chicago working everywhere. But for me, it's like, I trust the brands, they trust me. And that means a lot to me because the brands are all old. And they don't trust everybody, You need to follow a lot of rules to get Alden, and you need to build a lot of trust to get Edward Green. So it's kind of like that means a lot, whether I bring in Christ next year, belts out of Germany, I had to poke them like 20 times for them to get a response. And they were just like, well, we were just busy, but we'll talk in the spring. And I was like, that means a lot. Like Rancourt as well. I had 2 referrals to Rancourt and they never would call. And then finally Brett from Alden, who I've befriended, where I talk daily with him, just even about anything. He finally poked them and was like, you should really call Shawn. He's in no rush, but you should really call Shawn. I called Lotus Leather in Connecticut. We sold them at Haberdash. Again, had to poke them a few times because the rep that I was dealing with just disappeared after 2020. I was worried that they had COVID and kind of went away, but they were just like, oh, he left the company. We have your notes. We just hadn't gotten to you. And I'm like, okay. But they're like, we like what you want, so let's work together. And that's kind of a slow burn too. So it means a lot, these brands mean a lot to me personally. So, and it means a lot that they entrust me to sell them, so.
How would you say that you've learned kind of the power of persistence, right? Especially when you have to consistently reach out to folks and, it could feel like rejection. Like how have you gotten good at just, like you said, keep poking and not taking offense?
Actually I had to have this conversation with a friend. She's in luxury sales. And she was like, do you kind of get that up and down? Like, how do you manage it? And I was like, I'm mostly by myself. I don't have a staff. So for me, I just have to kind of manage the expectations and know that most people aren't taking, I can't take it personally. For some of our other conversations, when the client not showing up, even though he's hitting me up with text saying he's going to show up, we're all busy.
Right.
I'm retail. I'm, on a scale of groceries, work, family, et cetera. I'm the et cetera, where they're like, he's there.
Yeah.
He'll come when he comes, but it can be kind of scary. I saw a quote recently where it was like, no one understands, like an entrepreneur, 1 week the phone will be ringing off the hook and the next week it'll be quiet. And, some days I sit here and when I was employed by other people, I was like, I'm still getting paid. I'm posting on Instagram, I'm like researching, it's no big deal. But now it's like, oh, wow, like today was pretty quiet.
Yeah.
Oh shit. It's like, but on the other hand, I look at my lineup of like my CRM of like clients I reached out to or orders on, coming in. And I'm like, just believing in what I'm doing, believing in the contact I'm doing, and just keeping a kind of a nice steady thing. And, I think that's the thing too, is just believing in yourself and knowing that like, it'll come, and this is really trying times. It's still like, for people who follow the markets, you see 1 month sales are way up, like, consumer sales are way up. And then you can't figure out why the next it's down. And then, that's reflecting directly on me because I'm a consumer sale, and I have friends in suiting and one time they're really busy and one time they're not. So you just have to keep reaching out and growing in and knowing that like the guy who's saying up on Instagram saying he wants this shoe that just came out that you have an 8.5 in, and then him in Han, and then you being like, it's here. Do you want it? And then him being like, I got bills.
Yeah.
And you're like, Okay, guy. Like you were just harassing me for like a week looking for this one shoe, and it's like I have it and you don't want it, and it's just like, hey, that is what it is. It's just you have to kind of keep grinding forward, and looking for outlets. I post one brand, I post another brand to try to talk about stuff. Doing video. My friend Anastasia, she got on YouTube and she's phenomenal. But I also knew when she would just do one-on-one interviews like this, and she'd need like a stage assistant. Just saying like, I was like a PR person. Like I would stand there and kind of coax her forward, or we'd like practice. Yeah. So to be frank, doing a visual podcast is kind of new for me. Seeing myself on camera, hearing my own voice. I mean, I'm used to hearing myself talk with clients, but it is scary when, you're reaching out to clients, you're not getting a response. And then all of a sudden, I mean, no offense, kind of like you're like, I don't need anything, but hey, what's going on? And all of a sudden you're like, want to do a podcast? And I was like, sure, why not? It sounds awesome,
Yeah.
So, you just don't know, but it is a grind and it's sales, whether you're selling software or anything else. Like, you just have to kind of just incrementally believe in yourself and know that what you sell is good and people will come, I
think one of the things that kind of stands out in my head, and I'm curious, especially as an entrepreneur, and that shift from being an employee to entrepreneur, dealing with idle hands, right? Like a lot of just kind of quiet time where business isn't busy. You talked about, trying new things and experimenting. How did you think to make that productive time rather than just
still working on it? Just sitting on Tumblr trying to find inspiration work. I mean, it's stuff like that. No, I mean, like shooting a reel. I mean, I'm 44 years old. Shooting long format video, talking about a product. I totally get that. Like that's sales now. That's just me kind of doing customer outreach and stuff like that. And, a point I didn't make back, and I think that you were trying to get at, was the difference in Chicago retail per kind of our conversations and kind of what I've told other people in the past is it's very consultative. So in that regard, doing the videos is a good way for me to kind of keep up that consultative type atmosphere. So trying new things and then just hoping that cuts down on the hesitation once the guys come in store. Because, it's like, I've already talked about this and you've seen 2 videos on it. So maybe that'll kind of like take the edge off where we're in the Midwest, whether you're selling a car or this, you're going to get the first visit's kicking the tires. The second visit is, I did all this research. How does it pan out with what you say? And then the third time is like, okay, let's try it on. Or that's the kind of the end of the second visit. And then the third one is like, okay, I've done everything. I've asked my spouse, or I've saved my pennies, and here's the time to do this. And I'm going to do this. But idle time, like I try not to sit there and just send emails. It's just, that to me, it feels like you're just throwing it into the abyss, your time. It's like, there's a time and a place for it. And I think it's better in kind of short runs. But I think sitting there, and if I was just going through email lists, just reaching out to people, I think I would really not be good and lose my mind. But motion in retail helps. So even if I'm on the phone, I'm trying to walk around the store and stuff like that. I mean, sitting there and looking at stuff and saying, okay, like I got to come up with some made to order stuff, or even just like brainstorming. I'm doing some collaborations with, in my industry, you don't need to do like big collaborations. It can be with clients. Like collector clients or clients who are in suiting. So like I'm doing Alden, that Alden was really not, my rep really pushed back on one of the makeups that I wanted to do. And my client really, really wanted it. He was a buddy and he's just like, let's do it. And I was like, you know what? No, let's do it. I have to buy 12 anyway. So if we pre-order, like if we pre-sell them, that's cool. But it's like, it's kind of one of the things where if you're in an industry, especially if it's fashion and you have a gut for something, you're like, hey, just because everyone else isn't doing this in the industry doesn't mean that I can't get 20 guys who might be sitting on the outskirts who think, an all blacked out suede tassel loafer. Like, let's do it. Because it's all contrast and everything else. This one is blacked out top to bottom. It's going to be the coolest thing. And then I was like jazzed about it. And then I reached out to him and was like, dude, we got to promote this because I just signed the paperwork saying it's done deal. So like, let's do it. And he was like, cool, let's do it. So it's one of those things where it's like, in Europe and London, still they're wearing tons of black and they love black suede. Just because in America with Alden, they're not doing it, and Alden hates using black suede, doesn't mean that it's not going to be cool.
Right.
It just means
exactly.
it's going to be very centered to me. So it's like, and that's what me being an entrepreneur is me taking the risk on a judgment call that, I think is going to kick. And, maybe something I pick will, and maybe something I won't, and I'm only 4 months in. So it's like, I'm willing to kind of make those judgment calls now and kind of feel it out. So, but awesome. Yeah, I mean, it is scary though. I will hands down, whether you're a baker or anything that's like got like an expiration date on it, like I can't even fathom that stuff. I mean, I'm already making judgments on some mistakes came from, England, and I was like, I'll keep it because it's just good table stock, but it's like, it is a mistake. And, I mean, that's my mistake. I just paid for that they made, but I decided it's cheaper to keep it than send it back, type thing. So it's one of those things where, I give people who are, I mean, you could be an accountant just sitting there waiting for tax season, and it's like, you gotta, or you're in advertising. I mean, that's even scarier. I mean, then you're based on your creativity 100%, stuff like that. I mean, when you're an entrepreneur, it's not just all fintech and it's all not just investor meetings and everything else like that. It can be a scary endeavor,
Yeah, absolutely. So. All right. So let's talk about some of the challenges. I mean, you've been in business, or you've been open for 4 months. Mm-hmm. I would imagine there was a lot of legwork beforehand.
Totally.
What were some of the challenges that you faced kind of in that process and getting to opening day?
I would say patience last year. People are like, what did you do last year? And I was like, this has been kind of like an incremental, like planning type thing. It's like, I didn't drop out of the industry. I still was posting about stuff. I was interacting with stuff. So you're right. It was a lot of legwork and a lot of just trust, a lot of looking at real estate here in town. Chicago is very polarized when it comes to pricing, and the expectations of some not landowners, but, business owners of, who own commercial real estate. So that's kind of tough. I mean, you can go anywhere from like where I am here, where I had a relationship with the building and they wanted me here. Plus it's really near my, where I live down in Printers Row, versus like, trying to get a space over in Fulton Market where I could have run the store third shift, where it could have been like noon to 8, which would have been kind of cool because, I could got up, done my morning and then gone to the store. And then, as everyone knows, if you're in Chicago, Fulton Market doesn't get popping until like 6, so I could have run like a late shift store. It would have been totally different, but on the other hand, it would have worked, versus looking up in, when I was looking up in Bucktown, I loved the space there, but the building owner didn't want to negotiate on lease. And even though there was more than a baker's dozen of empty retail spaces on that block when I was looking during COVID, they didn't want to do that. Another thing was banking. Having worked in community banking, I saw it different being down in Central Illinois. I knew who our big, commercial banking people were. And I knew that, I had somebody I dated, her big job when she was at another bank was to bring in new commercial accounts. And she was always looking at, young entrepreneurs or small businesses or, whatever. And I still saw community banking like that. And banking now is just not that.
Right.
So, all this talk sometimes about like, basically they want your checking account, but they don't want to do anything else unless you have tech after it. FinTech, MedTech, tech. That's how I feel, and at that point, it's just kind of like, I'm looking for a line of credit that's not huge, not by any standard, but just enough that it's a little bit more than a credit card, in regards to like, I need $30,000 line of credit.
Right.
That's what I was coming in to ask for. And I was willing to do 50 if they wanted me to go 50, but I was only going to use a small percentage at times. And mostly it was just to bring in product that didn't pay off right away, because it was literally just getting in the door. And, all their comments was, and I had all the financials and I had kept track of all my numbers throughout the year. So like I had numbers for my business, and see in 2 to 3 years. And my response to them was, I'm not going to need you in 2 to 3 years,
Right.
you know? And if I want to open another store or open a chain of stores, which that's not in my future, but if I wanted to go that route, I'm going to a private investment bank. I'm not going to Chase, I'm not going to,
Right.
you know, First National of whatever. So it's like, you know, to me, then it becomes a different breed. Like I'm going to need wealth management in 3 years. I'm not going to need,
Right.
you know, a $25,000, $30,000 line of credit, God forbid.
Right.
But, you know, to me, it's like, that's what I want. I want that. So, you know, when all these smaller banks are like, oh, we're here to help you out. No, you just want a checking account and you want to charge me too much for like, you know, a service fee. Yeah. You know, like I get the fees on ACHs. I'm not going to harp fees, but you're charging me for not keeping $2,500 in there a month, or you're bringing it up to like $3,000 a month. Like, come on. And you're going to jam me on a fee. Like it's post-recession. Like, how do you want these things to go? So again, I can sit there and harp that all day, considering I came from that background, but I mean, that's a challenge. You know, luckily I had vendors that knew me and supported me. So that was a little less of a scary thing. I mean, even Edward Green before I had signed the lease for the store, Edward Green had offered me one of 2 people that they were willing to let have a digital only non-physical footprint selling of their product. And I was truly honored to have been offered that. Cause like Alden, you have to have a physical location. You can't just sell online.
Right.
So for Edward Green to offer it, I was blown away. But on the other hand, I was kind of like, I don't want that responsibility. Like I'm going to order literally soon. I want the store open. I want to just do it as a traditional retailer, just to kind of take the edge off of them of being like, well, that's the guy only in America who's just got his own website. And I didn't want to be that guy, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the fact they offered it was, you know, very endearing. And, you know, I was super excited about that. But, you know, besides that though, you know, to be frank, if you come from a background, if you were an accountant and now you got your own CPA firm and you're doing your own thing, or you come from a consultant and you're specialized in whatever field you're in, you know, it's rough because it's just, you guys got to have confidence. But on the other hand, you know, once you kind of get rolling and you believe in yourself and you kind of have clients coming in, you have to be kind of cheap. I mean, like, you know, frugal, I should say, is kind of the word you're looking for. And I am extremely that when it comes to the business. So it's one of those things where, you know, once you get those things ironed out, you know where your break-even point is and where you need to be and stuff like that, then, you know, I think it's a great place to be. You know, you kind of take the bull by the horns and it is what it is. So, you know, that part excites me. It's exciting. It's fun. I missed my clients, but you know, when it comes to challenges, I still think it's still financial. That, and to go back to the real estate side of it, Chicago real estate, commercial retail is way too big. You know, I think, you know, we've had this discussion before. I've talked with other people. There's not enough stores under 1,000 square feet versus stores that are like 2,500 to 5,000 square feet. And for an entrepreneur in a small retail, whether you're selling candles or whether you're selling suiting, you know, 2,500 to 3,000 square feet, even if a quarter of it's a back room, that's a lot of space. Right. And it's a lot of lease. And, you know, it's really tough in that regard. So it's like, that's a scary thing sometimes.
What part of, one of my favorite questions is, what part of entrepreneurship was most challenging to you or most surprising to you? And you can go back to your years very early on starting. A lot of people say, I didn't realize how hard accounting was. I shouldn't try to do that myself. Like, what are some of those things that you didn't have as much confidence in, and you had to figure out a solution for?
That's a great question, literally. Because I don't want to come off cocky and be like, I'm up for any challenge. So it's like, you know, and I don't want to say that in some kind of like cocky kind of way, but it's like, you know, I mean, I have a finance background. I'm used to using Excel. I'm used to that kind of stuff. Again, I'm kind of thrifty when it comes to my fiscal conservative just self. And also kind of like, I'm always worried about a rainy day. So it's like running the business. It isn't scary for me to be like, okay, I can pay myself, but I know I can't pay myself like my old salary. Like literally, I just need to cover bills. Right. And that's it. And I know where my before I opened the store, I knew where my break even point was to be able to do that, you know, and stuff like that. So, accounting is a big one. I mean, I remember when we opened Anastasia's store, I mean, everything was run through PayPal register and Excel. I mean, it was 2009. I was talking with Anastasia about this last night. I told her, I'm like, it's mind blowing now that, and we designed our own website. I designed our website by scratch. Yeah. I coded it all myself and then meshed it with another, like with the actual, like website side or the selling side. Yeah. So with Magento was back then, it was open source. So you could just download a free version and just mesh it into your store. And I did that for all 4 years we had that business. And now you turn around, you get a Shopify, a BigCommerce, whatever, website's all there. You get a theme, you plug it in, you shoot your own stuff. It's all good. I mean, it's mind boggling now starting a retail business in 2020, 2021 versus when we did at the height of the Great Recession in 08, 09. I mean, it's CRMs at all. It tells you your finances. It gives you your margins. And that's all built into the back end of Shopify. And you're just like, holy cow. Like 10 years ago or 9 years ago, this was just like, you have to pay 30 different things. You had no idea. Half people were like, I don't get a good accountant. And you're like, I'm not paying an accountant $200 an hour to just like run my daily transactions. Like it made no sense, but a good accountant in the end is like worth its weight in gold. We had a stellar one when I was with Anastasia, and she's got one now that's going to refer to me when it's time for my tax season. So, that kind of stuff is stellar. Getting an LLC. We ran her first business without an LLC. It's a pure partnership. I would not recommend that to anybody. I don't care who you're partnering with. It's not the way to go. Get it done, get it in paperwork, get yourself protected. LLC your business. I mean, that's something we did not do. And something that I was just like, oh my God, like how the hell did we, just financially for tax benefits, like, I mean, and again, it seems stupid. It seems super arbitrary. Like, why would you not put an LLC in? But back in like 08, 09 in the state of Illinois, it was like 2 G's or something like that to get an LLC. And it was like, got 2 G's, you can do a lot of other stuff, right? Stuff like that. So that kind of type stuff too. So it is an interesting situation and it changes so much over time. And so much stuff is like built in, but yeah, I mean, accounting is always a challenge. People who ask me if I'm hiring anybody, I'm like, no, I'm not hiring anybody. Like, I need to get through, I need to pay me, like, and, that's step one. And then the thing too is, they're like, you're working 6 days a week. I had a year off of work. Yeah. Working 6 days a week. I didn't do it. I missed working. Tell me, talk to me in a year and a half. And I'll be like, no, I'm down to like 5 days, like a traditional work week. And it is what it is. But right now, Saturdays by appointment, Sundays, I completely disconnect. I made that a rule. And I think more people need to do that, both an entrepreneur and whatnot, unless you're like a doctor or something like that. I truly believe 1 day a week, completely disconnecting is vital. I mean, it's not perfect, in this day and age, per story, we and I have talked before just recently. I was at dinner on Saturday and my phone's blowing up with a client, and my date was very open to letting me answer it, but I was like, it's Saturday at 8 p.m. This is a bad precedent to start. If it was like 6, I'd say, okay, right. Maybe it's still within work hours or whatnot, but, I think that's a very fast downhill that I think people get burned out on if they don't give themselves at least just a day a week to just, as best as possible, kind of disconnect. Don't ignore a client, don't ignore social media, but I think it's a good way of just being like, I'm out with my family, I'm going to go sit in the woods, I'm going to go just do whatever and just kind of let Sunday be the day.
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite questions is how do you find that way to balance your responsibilities or integrate your own life and passion with your business and separate, like, my business is not me personally. Like, how do you separate those two things? How did you find that Sunday was just your, I'm not dashing?
I kind of made it a concerted effort literally when I cracked the door in July. I was like, I'm also a cyclist. So basically in cycling terms, usually you take one long day weekend to go do like whatever, like test your distance. You're going to go do a 60-mile ride. You're going to do a 40-mile ride if that's your fitness. You know, like during the summer of last year, during COVID, I was one of the rare people. I lost a bunch of weight because I was riding a ton. You know, I was off work, I had nothing to do. I got up, I had my morning routine. I switched back to being a morning person, kind of thinking, okay, I'm going to open a store soon. Eventually, I need to be back up in the morning. And I kind of set a schedule and kind of tried to stay to it. So I'm not like up at 3 o'clock in the morning watching cat videos on YouTube, you know, which again, there's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, it's one of those things where that was the thing. And then, you know, but again, even when it comes to that, for me, cycling it clears my mind and sets me up. And I'll be honest, since I opened the store, I've been absolutely horseshit at it. You know, so it's like, you know, I've given myself that time to balance, but I've thrown it off by dropping a priority that I know will benefit dashing. So it's even that where I'm still trying to find it. So, you know, it's like ideally, yeah, my Sundays now, you know, I sit there, I read, I just disconnect. I try not to even be on my laptop, which again, is kind of not possible, but I try not to be. But it's one of those things where it's like, I think it's vitally important for people. I think it's vitally important for anybody doing anything, but it has to be a priority. You know, in my mind's eye, I was like, great, I'm gonna get up, trash myself on the bike, come back, and I'll just be like comatose the rest of the Sunday. So I really wouldn't be that engaged or that helpful to anything. But, you know, I think staying on a schedule, you know, if you're creative and you work better at 3 o'clock in the morning, then hey, you know, I mean, we did that with Anastasia, you know, I mean, she was a night owl and I ended up staying up late and we didn't open the store till like 9 or 10. So it was no big deal. And, you know, that sometimes, you know, when we were in a big studio together and it was part of our loft that we lived in, you were just kind of always on working.
Right.
You know, and that was a passion project because it was both of us like putting it out there. You know, it's a lot more social media. I can just turn that off, you know, and just be like, I'm not answering DMs right now. You know, it's like, it is what it is. There's no shoe emergencies. You know, the guy can wait on what color to use on his shoes tomorrow in a DM. And it's like, no big deal. I can answer that, or I can just, you know, on the fly, hit that up and be like, I'll reach out to you on Monday when I get back into the store. Like I'll send you shots or I'll send you a spec or I'll give you a description. So again, it's a challenging thing, you know, especially because I enjoy this. I'm scrolling Instagram, looking at stuff. I'm looking on, again, I'm an old man. I'm still on Tumblr looking for inspiration shoes that guys were doing back in 08, 09 when Tumblr was like really popping. So it's like stuff that I think, you know, would kind of still be relevant today or stuff guys haven't seen in forever. Because you're always kind of looking for that little bit of extra something that, you know, everybody hasn't touched. So it's like, you know, what can we do and stuff like that. So, you know, it's always a challenge, but you just have to kind of sometimes, like you said, I have to just put a break on it and say, hey, you know, got to respect my boundaries on this. You know, which again, some clients respect and might appreciate, and others who are just very like, no, might not quite, you know, appreciate it. So, you know.
So what does your personal life and dashing, what does Tuesday look like 5 years from now?
Once a Powerball hits, I think it's going to be, that's a great question because I've seen how the market's kind of changing, and see, I don't look at myself, how should I phrase this? Even though I'm in Chicago, I see myself more as like a luxury good. So I would love, I'm gonna put this out there, I would love to be like the Kith of these shoes, that high-end sneaker brand out of, you know, out of New York. That, to be frank, and, you know, I'm not going to probably get knocked off and someone's going to steal that from underneath me, but that would be my end goal. Like, I would love to be able to get those young guys transitions who are only into sneakers now, who now all of a sudden are finally finding loafers because everyone's been lounging at home and not really wearing shoes, and they all want slip-ons, getting them into that stuff to keep these heritage brands and other brands like that kind of growing. I mean, I'd love to have a staff. I'd love to be able to like be just generating content, you know, in that regard, but I don't think I'm ever going to leave that side of the business. You know, it's like, it's mine unless someone comes in and wants to buy me out. And even then, you know, I don't even know if I would switch it up like that, but like my goal is to have it. I mean, to be frank, my lease is 5 years here. So basically you're kind of looking a little, that's why I asked if it was 2 years or 5 years. Cause it's like, or like 3 years and 5 years. Because to me, it's like 5 years, I could be kind of going that direction of like a luxury version of dashing that's designed out not by me, but has that kind of like elements of a luxury store to get those guys in, whether it's in here or whether it's someplace else in Chicago or even someplace else.
Right.
You know, so, you know, that's what I've looked at it as, like 3 years, 5 years, and like 8 years, kind of where I want to be, you know, and I would love to do other stuff with dashing, you know, I mean, whether it's not its own clothing line and stuff like that, but just doing, you know, lots of collaborations with lots of great small boutique businesses, you know, I mean, at LaFaux, we worked with a lot of great people, but, you know, Hiro from Japan made a good comment to me. He's like, I can't work with you because I'm loyal to XYZ. I was like, that's fine. And he goes, maybe it's your time to go find your, it sounds like it's going to sound weird, hero, with meaning himself. Like, is it like, it's time for you to go find your own Japanese shoemaker who is moving up the ranks, who you'll have a relationship with and be able to kind of have that relationship. So it's kind of like that. Like, to me, I want to keep striving and finding those kind of brands and offering to people, men and women, because I think that's a huge market. So, you know, I would still love to be in store. I still love meeting clients. I still love communicating with clients. I think video is going to be way bigger, you know, video consultations, video fitting, stuff like that. I think it's going to be much, much more important, especially in the next couple of years. I think it's going to take off. And, you know, I know Instagram is trying to push everyone to video to be TikTok or some hybrid between TikTok and YouTube. I think YouTube is going to be very big. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do with YouTube. I see what Anastasia is doing with it. I see what other people I follow on it are doing. And I think it's, you know, there's a lot of upside to it. So that kind of stuff is kind of what I see myself doing. I mean, I love working with the clients.
Yeah.
I love bringing someone in, gaining their trust, showing them that these brands they're going to be there, et cetera. You know, I recently was asked, like, what's my long-term goal? And to be frank, I would love to like GM one of those brands or like CEO one of those brands. You know, I think
I like it.
Yeah. I mean, like, if Alden, I think, is going to keep it all in the family. So, I mean, I wouldn't even try to say them, but, you know, it's like, when I go to Alden for the first time next year to sit down and have a, you know, dinner with, you know, at the factory, I'm excited to talk to Art and see what's kind of going on and see how he sees the future. Because there's a couple of us who are a little on the younger side who are trying to push the brand that aren't luxury. We're not engineered garments. We're not those type of places who kind of have a little bit of clout and kind of elbow their way in. They can do what they want because they're engineered garments. And you're like, okay, that's fine. Like, there's independent guys like us that want to try to push the brand a little bit too of what they can do. And that's why it's good to have other brands. Edward Green, you know, Alden won't do blue cordovan. Edward Green called me, and it's like, we got a whole bunch of blue cordovan. What do you want to do? It's like, yeah. But, you know, if Hillary tomorrow said after 5 years, she's like, I'm ready to retire, you know, I would love you to come work for the company in some regard here in, you know, Northampton, I'd be like, okay, I'm there. I want to keep giving that to Asia, keep giving it to Europe, keep giving it to America, you know, grow South America. Like, to me, that would be super exciting. And like, you know, working with the sales staff and working with, you know, the Asian market to just love this product and stuff like that. To me, that's the kind of thing I would love to do. But yeah, the whole kind of, like, I joke about the Kith thing, but you know, I look at those stores and I just visually swap out sneakers and swap in kind of like, these shoes are more of like a hybrid between these shoes and more casual heritage stuff in regards to like Ranger Mocks and kind of Ivy style stuff. And I'm just like, how cool would that be? Like, to walk in and be, it's like, you know, you got a whole ceiling of indie boot like mock-ups, like how they have when it's all like Air Jordans or like like Air Force Ones, when you see like a whole ceiling of like Air Force Ones, how cool would it be like a whole bunch of indie boots like done like that. Stuff like that. Then I'm like, that's kind of cool, you know. And I think that would be a way to get that kind of people in and, you know, find out where New Balance is in 6 years and kind of, you know, how it kind of melts into this stuff or, you know, stuff like that. So again, it's kind of grandiose, you know, and it's kind of like an open-ended answer, but, you know, I mean, I have a little bit of bigger plans for stuff like that. And that's the kind of stuff it's like, you know, sticking with that heritage manufacturing and heritage people and, you know, keep growing that, because that's fun, you know. I mean, it's people's livelihoods. It's like,
I love it. I think that that'd be one of the coolest collaborations and combinations. Now, one question I have: how do you stop yourself from pursuing that now? And or what daily steps are you taking to get there?
100%. It happened with the website. And it just kind of is like to kind of give you what you're saying. Mm-hmm. My grandiose plans for the website got slammed in my head. And I was like, take a break. You're doing this all yourself. You don't have a staff of 10 and back. You don't have a whole group of people taking photos. You don't have, a model at the ready that you can just throw them in a pair of shoes and, do all this stuff. You don't have a bunch of graphic designers to create all these graphics. Like, the website's never going to be perfect. Take a break and do it. I kind of dangle that out there and I talk about it to kind of keep myself a little bit motivated to do it. It's kind of the way to do it. It's like, we kind of did it with Anastasia and kind of said, okay, eventually we want to do X, Y, Z. And it's kind of not getting wrapped up in the day-to-day of retail. I think that's the thing. And I think, Jerry Hughes owned Haberdash. Him and I will readily admit, I love Jerry, and Jerry and I also had problems. But Jerry's vision, I will second to none say the guy had vision. And I think that's the thing that I kind of took in, where it's like, okay, he tried a half dozen times, a half dozen things, and he kind of didn't get it till he met Adam, who had Haberdash, got in there, helped him shape it, got it to a point, and then it just didn't happen again. But he always was like right there with what it could have been and where the market was going. And that's the kind of thing I've seen too. I mean, we talk about it amongst ourselves, all the staffers. We're like, what would happen if he just had given us a little bit of slack? Like, could we have been the Todd Schneiders of the world now, with private equity backed or, investment banking backed, where we have, 5 stores now, it's gonna be 15 stores, or like, could we have waited J. Crew out and like taken over J. Crew's kind of position and things? So, in that regard, I kind of see myself like, okay, like, this is luxury product. Sure, it doesn't say Dior next to it. It doesn't say Prada next to it, even though John Lobb is owned by Hermes, so it's like, it is a luxury product, and having that insight of what that stuff is. So it's like, I see that, like, I would love to do that tomorrow, but it's like the propensity of it succeeding in 2021 is kind of rare, but things are percolating. And that's why I want to kind of stay on this track. Cause it's like, if I see an opportunity that I could get into like a small private bank here in Chicago and say, okay, like, I'm going to go big. Let's do this. Right. Like, I got a gut. This is going to work. Like, the market's coming back into this. You can see where the trends are going. Young guys want to be in a little bit of dressier shoes, but not going to be in like wingtips. They're going to be in fancy loafers or some hybrid thing in between. And that's what the likes of like, like a John Lobb is looking at that. And Edward Green pivots really fast. And, they saw their market changing and stuff like that. So it's like, I think it's a little bit of self-control, a lot of self-actualization. Yeah. I mean, it's like, you see in med tech, someone comes up with a big goal, they keep pushing it, they talk themselves into it, and then they screwed over a bunch of shareholders. And then next thing you know, you're being indicted. It's like, you can get a little in front of your skis, so to speak, or whatever that kind of saying is. You can get a little too far out if you have a little too much ego and not enough realization, or you're trying to kind of scam your way there. And, that kind of fake it till you make it makes sense to a part, but it's like, the reality is you still need income and you still need clients, and it's, that build up, and then it just is like, that's that. So, it's tough because it is. You wake up in your morning, you're like, God, how cool would a store like that be? Of course, people would want to shop with you when you have a store that looks like that. And then you sit back and you're like, we had a store like that at Haberdash. And we had days when it was like slow. And then I'm sitting there thinking, God, I got to keep these guys motivated to sell. We got to keep movement here. You don't want guys milling around, sales staff, I should say. When I say guys, I mean anybody on my staff. And then you're like, oh my God, we're paying $18,000 a month for this spot.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like, you kind of sit there and you weigh stuff out. You got to be kind of realistic about it. So it's like, would I have loved to have been in Fulton Market next to the ASOB store, 2 doors down from Blind Barber, around the corner from, 6 cool hotels, and around the corner from Nobu, and yet, it would have been flipping awesome. But I'm doing on my bank account, and that dwindled after 2020. So it's like, and my family helped me out a little bit to get the intro orders in just to get the, ball rolling. And, my goal is by 1 year to pay them back. Yeah. So it's like, that's my goal. Well, it's to kind of show it that, even if it just goes back to being my line of credit, at least I want to show that I was able to incrementally pay back my investment and kind of keep going from there. So yeah, to me, it's like, I guess I'm maybe a little too fiscally conservative to have those Kanye dreams of being like, I'm the greatest. I'm going to do everything. You guys don't know me. I'm going to Edward Green. I'm going to triple their sales, that type of thing, Alden, everyone who does Alden, they're all crap. I'm going to do it so much better. That's not my ego. I'm just going to fit in, do my thing, and just, percolate. And I think there's another retailer where him and I talk all the time, and he's out east and he's outside New York, and he's got a kind of a character like me, and he's kind of got a bigger kind of like vibe. And I'm just like, we call and talk, and I'm like, thank God there's someone else just as kind of like, we're like the Willy Wonkas of the group, Like I like wearing suits still because I think it legitimizes things in Chicago, but my style's even a little bit changed. And he showed up at the menswear show in a seersucker shorts suit, and the guy looked fly as hell. I mean, lime green seersucker. He looked fly as hell. I was like, I finally get to meet Voltaire. Dude, you're awesome. Like, I thought I was looking good. Like, dude rolls in a lime seersucker like suit with shorts. I'm like, dude, come on, dude. Like, thank God. Like, you and I are the two wacky guys. We don't look #menswear all the time where it's like leather. I mean, his store is kind of like that, but it's just fun to have kind of like, I don't know, another kind of oddball to kind of be like, we can push this, like, and do our own thing. But he's also kind of like me. He's very conservative about stuff. Right. He's, I forget where he's from. I don't want to say because I don't want to misjudge, but but Voltaire out of Style by Blaine, dude's awesome. So, and he's just got a different vibe, kind of like me. So it's kind of fun. But yeah, I mean, in Chicago, it's not a place to plop down. I mean, you can go New York and there's 6 Alden stores. Yeah. You can do like a little ring of fire and hit them all, and you're going to bump into people you saw at the other store because they're all trying to check out stuff. And here I'm just plopped down here. So, and if I did something grandiose, it probably wouldn't be in Chicago. Hate to say that.
That's fair. That's sad to hear, but I get
it. I mean, I totally give credit to like Stadium Goods or like Round 2 and stuff like that, who can do big sneaker stores and kind of go kind of big in that regard. But if I was going to do like a luxury big store, I don't even know where I go. It's a tough gig. It's kind of, I mean, literally I plot myself down in Europe at that point, honestly, like some kind of big city like that, like a Paris or something kind of, that kind of vibe, or, but something where it's going to be kind of appreciated, so to speak, where you can kind of do a grandiose store and, not have it be like, who's this guy, Yeah. I mean, no offense. Like, does Chicago need a 5-story Burberry store? And the nuance of it, like looking super cool on Michigan Avenue kind of wears off after like a year or so. And you're like, that's a
lot of space.
That's a lot of space for Burberry in Chicago. So it's like, again, you sit there and you look at that, but then you look at, real estate value over in Gold Coast, it's like $4,000 to $1,000 a square foot, depending where you put yourself. And you're like, that's a lot of product you got to move. Yeah. I mean, it's like just tons. So it's one of those things where, again, I think that's kind of the goal. You just have to be a little bit self-aware, Do you think you're going to be in advertising and win like, 5 Golden Lions in your first year because you came up with like 3 jingles? Like, that type of thing. It's like, okay, you can aim for that, but I mean, that takes a strike of genius to like do something like that. Same with this. It's like, saying it'd be a $3 million store in a year. That's a lot of Aldens and Greens, So, that might be the long-term goal, but that's just, in my personal opinion, that's just kind of, I think you have to be a little grounded.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So I'm going to hit you with some quick hitters, some entrepreneurial, some fun, kind of as we start to conclude. So, what job do you currently have for your store that you're actively trying to work yourself out of?
Oh, shit. hate cleaning the store. I should have just paid to have the cleaning service in the building. And honestly, I didn't cook it into the lease. And I was like, what do I need the lady to come in and clean the floors and clean the toilet? I'm like, oh my God, I just need to pay the lady to clean the floors and clean the toilet.
That's a great answer.
To be frank, it's a retail thing. Like you're just sitting there and you're like, and the thing, the lady came in and like cleaned everything. Like I don't mind cleaning the table and the mirror and stuff like that, but that. I have to cook that in. I'm going to cook that in. That extra like $50 a month will be cooked into the lease. I'm going to tell them to add it as a service probably in January of next year. Like first 6 months, I'll clean the toilet and the floor. But after that, just send a lady in every 2 weeks or every week and a half to do it. I don't want to do it. So
I love that. No, I love that. What's your go-to shoe on a Saturday?
That's a good question. Because I did that in the interview I did with Stitch Down. He was like, what are you wearing right now? And my answer was like, I'd love to say something like fancy and be like, I'm wearing XYZ. And I'm like, dude, I'm in like a beaten up pair of Aldens. Like, go-to is always just like a loafer from Alden. I mean, I have like 4 of them sitting at my door where I just kind of swap them in and out and stuff like that. Yeah. So I would say that like an Alden tassel loafer, probably in suede, is just something I just slip on and off and just run out the door in, and it looks cool. And some guys think tassels are a little too dressy, and I just wear it with a big kind of, F it, what the hell, it's just kind of thing. So I would say that would be my thing. Yeah.
What's a pair of shoes that you wish you could pull off, but you can't?
Oh, that's a good question.
You could also say that you think you could pull off anything.
I know. I'm not again, that's that self-actualization. I know what I can and can't. I've been exposed to Corté. They're out of France. They're very French, and I've tried them on a bunch of times. And Randy's going to freak out if he ever hears this podcast, because he said, Rob, I just cannot pull off Corté. I've tried it. It's not my fit. I really wanted to. Yeah. Because they were like, if you sell enough of them, we'll send you to France to the factory. I'm like, hell yes. Free trip to Paris with Randy, who knows everybody. Like, that would be awesome. Yeah. Can't do it. Of stuff I own, like I'm not a Double Monk fan. Everyone's going to freak the hell out. Everyone in finance is like, what the hell? I just can't do those. I just can't. But I would say those are the two things, like anything Corté or like a Double Monk. I just can't do it. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Randy's going to have to take on the challenge to find something that you can pull off.
Yeah, that, and I got to say something I don't carry, sneakers. I can if I find it, I guess. Nothing really kind of blows my mind that I look at aesthetically and say, I want that always. Like I look at stuff on my table and I'm like, yeah, I want that always. Yeah. But like my inspiration file is huge with sneakers, like the colors and the combos and kind of the vibe. But I look at it and I'm like, that's just not for me. I can appreciate it 100%. I can appreciate it. And guys who are sneaker collectors, I totally get it, because I have guys who are like high-end shoe collectors. But I just look at it, I'm like, I couldn't pull that off if my life depended on it. Like, no, that ain't gonna work. It's too chunky. It's not me. Even with a zero break pant, it just looks kind of like whatever. So it's just, that's me personally. But yeah.
Well, okay. So now another question popped in my head. Every time I've seen you look dapper, you look great. You look great now. Here's my question. What in your closet would you be embarrassed if someone saw you wearing?
During COVID once, I went out to Starbucks and they just looked at me because they're all used to me, even kind of like casually, just a pair of khakis and like something like a sweater. I walked in a pair of my Ella Bean boots with a pair of like weird Japanese joggers from Nike and like a sweatshirt from Tracksmith and like my cycling cap, like my winter cycling cap, like in Merino. They were just like, what happened to you? I was just like, I woke up. I wasn't feeling good. I didn't have COVID or anything. It was just like one of those days where I was just fatigued. I was like, it's cold in my apartment. I don't feel like getting changed. I'm just rolling out in this. And it was like, they were just like, what the hell? And I was like, take a picture because this is not going to happen again. Unless I have the flu and need a coffee because my brain is going to explode from not having caffeine, you are not going to see me like this again. But it was super funny because all the staff was just like, what the hell? Like, he's not dressed up. And like one time they were like, usually it's like I walk in, they take my order, it's almost like ready. I just get a quad espresso. They walked in like, oh, we didn't even recognize you with the mask and like my glasses on. They were just like, what the hell is this guy? So it's like, quad espresso, that's weird. Shawn orders that. I am Shawn. Oh my God, you're Shawn. So it's that kind of thing. But yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, it was totally funny. And I've like wandered out only like maybe twice like that, maybe 3 years. So
pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Impressive. All right.
But they are cool Nike joggers from Japan. So I will say they were pretty cool, but you won't catch me outside. You won't catch me outside.
Nike's got a lot of cool collaborations.
Yeah, it's that Japanese running guy who he does that. I cannot pronounce it, so I'm going to try. But it's that Nike collaboration that they do for their Nike Lab stuff. And this was like an old pair that was like knit and like tech, and it was just, they're phenomenal. I still have them. They're awesome.
This has been awesome. I'm so excited. There's just so many gems in here, and
and you're super easy to talk to. So
thank you.
Like I said, probably could talk another 2 hours. I like to talk. So you give me any topic, we can go down it and be like, stuff like that. But no, this is super cool. I really enjoyed this.
Thanks for watching. If you found this video to be helpful, please leave a comment, like, subscribe, and share with a friend. If you are an entrepreneur and want to share your story and be helpful to others, just shoot us an email at behelpfulpodcast@gmail.com. See you next time.